I do not have a huge following, and I'm not posting this for engagement bait because I usually always talk about political issues in the world, especially domestic ones. So I wanted to talk about the murder of Renee Nicole Good because I think it's deplorable and disgusting that ICE agents are allowed to do these things. Um, Jonathan Ross was the person that murdered her, and this situation reminds me of this because she was also murdered standing up for people in a community that she was not necessarily a part of, and the people that did this to her were not convicted, and they never had to get the consequences of murdering somebody for no reason just because of racism. Keith Porter was also murdered on New Year's Eve by an off-duty ICE agent, and if you look through the video of the murder of Renee Good, you can see that she wasn't even trying to do anything to that person. I will not be a part of one of the people that are dumb enough to believe the rewriting of history right in front of our eyes. If you don't remember, Minneapolis is the same town that George Floyd was murdered in, right here in Minnesota. He was murdered by Derek Chauvin, and mind you, not every single situation of unjustified murder goes to the court systems, as I said, with this case right here, and we never get justice. But with this, we did get justice, happily, thankfully, which doesn't atone for what he did. Being in jail, in prison for a few years doesn't make up for what he did, but he has also been getting shanked a few times since being in prison as well. I think that he should be in prison for the rest of his miserable life, along with the person that murdered him. And these are not the only shootings that have happened. In Portland, Oregon, just a few hours ago, this has happened. It wasn't ICE, it was the Department of Homeland Security, or no, it was U.S. Customs and Border Protection agents. My bad, my apologies. I'm using these pictures and news articles because there are a lot of people that want to play stupid and act like these things do not happen. Minneapolis has also had to deal with Minnesota as a whole state, had to deal with the assassination of Melissa Hortman, her husband, and her dog, along with some other things that were happening with the same man, trying to carry out political assassinations. And I wanted to bring this up and say that when Charlie Kirk, the man that was rampantly using his platform with USA Turning Point USA, to spread hateful rhetoric and influence other people to be just as racist, as you can see right here, in the flesh. I do not think that Wikipedia is necessarily a credible source, but I used it for pictures and for his name, but you can look this up yourself. He used his platform to spread hate, and there were a lot of people saying don't make jokes about it, and I do not condone the murder and assassination of Charlie Kirk. I never got on the internet on September 10th or the 11th and made jokes about it and said that he deserved it, because I do not believe in the death penalty. I very much believe in rotting in jail until you die. Do I think that he deserved to be in jail? Not necessarily. Do I think he should have had a platform? Not at all, because he was spreading hateful rhetoric, and there are so many people grieving the death of Charlie Kirk, saying that he was a Christian man that was God's child, even though he was spreading hateful, racist rhetoric and a lot of awful things. And I was going to bring up those same people never said anything about the 406 mass shootings that America has had. And I'm using all of these sources because a lot of people like to say that things are not real no matter how many times you show them. And all of this is happening because the Confederacy was never punished. To understand this timeline that we're living in, you have to understand that America was built on racism on the backs of slaves, and through assimilations of trying to convert people to Christianity and to forget their culture and customs. And that being said, slave owners in the Confederacy and people that carried out black code laws and Jim Crow were not prosecuted. They were not in trouble, along with the people who did things to Emmett Till and other people. They were not punished. So these people had children and taught them the same exact hateful rhetoric, and that is exactly why we're in this situation. And I also wanted to say that other countries and continents as a whole, just about, maybe not as a whole, but countries out there blaming American citizens for what has been going on is very tone deaf, because people have tanks and a lot of National Guard and Army soldiers, and we cannot just do something about that. I don't know. People think that this is like the Boston Massacre when it was just muskets and stuff like that, or whatever kind of um military weapons they had back then. It's not the same thing. We cannot dump tea into the ocean, the harbor, and just get away from this. The MAGA alt-right um party is very corrupt, and you can see that Donald Trump has been convicted of sexual abuse to E. Jean Carroll, and this has been common knowledge for pretty much everybody. And he is still allowed to be the United States president. Personally, I do not think that somebody who has done this to people should be allowed to even be walking on the street, but alas, here we are. And I just want to make sure, here are pictures of Melissa Hortman, her husband, and her dog that were assassinated. And, um, ICE has been hurting people in detention centers, and, um, there's evidence and charts to back all of this up. As you can see, it starts in 2004, and this is a part of 2025. I think this was an article, yes, from 2023. I mean, October 23rd, 2025. And it was one of the deadliest years for people in ICE custody. Mind you, the people in ICE custody have not even stood trial, the due process of law, to even see if they are here illegally or illegally not, which I do not think matters on stolen land. Excuse my dog. This was stolen land, and people are trying to police who can come here, but ever since the 1600s, people have been coming here illegally or stealing land and just coming over, and that was fine then. Here are also some people that have died in immigration and customs enforcements. Yeah, all these people, and I'm pretty sure there are probably more if I scroll down. But there is data, and so many um stories of this happening, not with just Renee Nicole Good. And I'm not diminishing her story, because it just happened and it should be something that we remember for the rest of Americans' history. I think that it is awful that these things can happen unchecked in America. So many things happen without justice, and there are so many things in America that has happened that is awful and is still happening, like ableist laws and um health insurance costing people their whole lives and more, and people dying because they choose rent or food over insulin or asthma inhalers. I just think that it's awful because we deal with this, and then we have countries criticizing the things that we are doing. I never voted for Donald Trump. I never would vote for Donald Trump. In fact, I was 17 going on 18 when he was running for president the first time in 2016. I was very outspoken about it then. I am outspoken about it now. And it is just very mind blowing that this is all allowed to be happening. I feel like the Democratic um, people in power in Congress and the mayors are not doing the things that they should be doing to stand up against this hatred. But I wanted to wrap this up by saying that I would very much like the Nuremberg trials to come back, because while I do not believe in the death penalty, I think that people should be held accountable for their crimes against humanity. Bombing Venezuela and abducting the president and his wife, very unlawful and immoral. I think that Maduro was a dictator, yes, but what are we doing about Vladimir Putin, and what are we doing about Benjamin Netanyahu, and what are we doing about the other people that are abusing their power? No, nothing, because Donald Trump wants oil to um, pay back oil companies that donated to his oh wait, his campaign in 2024, and to make up for. Okay, so I do not condone AI, but if you do the negative AI, it just gives you like pretty much the same exact thing. But yes, here you go. Here's the information and the data to back this up as well. I think that Donald Trump is interested in Venezuela for the oil. The Iraqi war was the exact same situation where George Bush came in and took over a dictatorship, and they were cheering and very happy that George Bush has done this, and then you see what that has turned into. People, I will say a few names actually. George Bush, Dick Cheney, and Henry Kissinger um took out uh Mr. I don't know if I can say that name correctly, so I will not say that name. So, history is always repeating itself for the worst, and people just do not have the nuance or the ability to pick up some books or even Google some articles and research. I think that Frontline and PBS and NPR are very, very good credible sources. .org, you have to look for websites that say .org. But in 2025, with the Donald Trump takeover of a lot of websites that are supposed to be credible and putting immature, childish messages behind them, like when they shut down the government because they didn't want to have health care under the big, beautiful bill, it was cutting healthcare for a lot of Americans. And for that, SNAP benefits were cut, and they didn't want to open the government back up because they didn't want to have a bipartisan deal when it came to health insurance. Um, that is what has been going on, and people just want to act like they do not understand or do not care. And I wanted to wrap this up with Christy Nome pretends to be like she cares about violence, but she killed her own dog because she said it was aggressive. Tried to bite, let me see, because it was exhibiting aggressive behavior, including attacking livestock and attempting to bite her. So, I'm very much against animals like pit bulls and bully breeds and animals that harm people, but um, Cricket was not a bully breed, as you can see. Animals are animals, so a lot of animals will attack livestock, such as chickens, especially if they are not trained, or if you do not watch what you're doing, and it is very sad, but she killed her own dog, and she wants to talk about um violence and things going on in the world as if she cares. Christy Nome, Stephen Miller, Pete Hegseth, J.D. Vance, Donald Trump, Marco Rubio, and so many other deplorable people are pushing very hateful narratives into America and having us look even worse than we always do due to America being built on the Trail of Tears, slavery, and black tears and black grief, and everything else that has happened in America. And now it's getting worse and worse, especially every time that Donald Trump is in power. He should never be in power. It was the 5-year anniversary of the January 6th um, rioting, if that's what you want to call it. Um, and then a day later, this has happened, and I appreciate the outrage of everybody coming out to hold vigils and support Renee Nicole Good for being murdered unjustified by ICE, who are not police officers, do not have the jurisdiction to do things and carry out those murders at all. Um, it's just insane that a day later this is happening. As I was saying, this happens periodically. Renee was not the first and probably will not be the last death, especially because, yeah, the anniversary. This happened on New Year's Eve, and this happened January 8th, just a few hours ago. For all the people saying that Americans are stupid, yes, I concede to that fact. The people that have voted for a person that harms children and has done all the things that he has done, I agree. The people that have voted for him are stupid, but the people that did not, on the other hand, are being called stupid as if we can stand up against tanks, police, ICE, and all of these other people. There's only so much that we can do, and I do not think that protesting will fix everything. I think that you have to fight in courts, you have to do something, and I don't know, I think a mix of both is very beneficial, but ever since 2016, a lot of us have been protesting against this monster, so I'm not really sure why everybody is jumping on a bandwagon to blame us, especially if other countries in the world are bandwagoning to alt-right pipelines and not doing anything about it. I think that the United Nations should be doing something about this, but they are not. I think that what has happened in Venezuela is very bad. I think that taking over one regime and just installing a new regime leader will not solve any problems, especially if it is rooted in imperialism and things like that are not beneficial. It is colonizing 2.0 times 20 probably, because a lot of the world is British colonized. So I think that the UN should step in. Somebody should step in and hold this man accountable. I think that honestly he should be put in prison along with everybody that has participated in January 6th riots. Most of those people that he pardoned were felons that already did something very, very, very horrible and got put back out on the streets and then did some other horrible things. This man himself is a felon and he is married to an immigrant and he has immigrant children. Um, his mother, and I usually do not go after kids, but this boy is 19. This boy is 19 years old and his mother is not from America, and nobody seems to care about that fact. It is right here that she is a citizen of the U.S. from 2006 to now, and yeah, hold on. Okay, wrong page. But yes, so MAGA is very undereducated, very hateful, and lacks nuance and consideration for others. This man has redlined black people from renting from him in the 70s. He is found liable of sexual assault, sexual abuse against E. Jean Carroll, and I can also look that up for everybody that wants to say that was not something that happened. Oh, okay. You can utilize Google. I'm using Bing. The jury verdict form. Oh, why is it cut? I don't really know how to use Bing, y'all. Wait. Here we go. Here we go. Um, there you go. Read it for yourself. Um, This man has done so many awful things. He should not be allowed to walk on the streets. I think he should be in prison. I wanted to get on social media and use my voice to say not all of us and definitely not me. Usually when something huge happens, I do crawl out of my bed rotting state from my mental illnesses such as depression and speak out against it because it should definitely be spoken out against. But all of these injustices that have happened need to stop, and I would hope that it would stop soon. And for midterm elections coming up in March, I hope that we regain power of Congress on both chambers of the Senate and the representatives to kind of stop this evil. And one can hope, and I would hope that more United States civilians, along with anybody else, immigrants. I don't really care if you are an immigrant. I think that people are not illegal on stolen land. They should be able to seek asylums in safer third world countries such as the United States. And I would hope that Renee gets justice. Is very sad. She has 3 children, a wife, and one of her children is now an orphan by definition because her child's son was killed in the army, I think, or something like that, and she was just murdered. So I would hope that Renee, though she should not be dead right now, gets justice that she deserves, along with all these other people that have faced the wrath of ICE doing these illegal things. And I hope that people like JD Vance, Christy Nome, Stephen Miller, Pete Hegseth, and all these other people face justice through going to prison for the rest of their miserable lives for committing treason by lying about the state of America and the racism and all of the things that they have done that hurt the American citizens and American people. And that's all I have to say today, January 9th. 5 a.m. I'm a little bit late, but January 7th, when this was happening, I was busy and I was busy yesterday as well, but I am here now to speak out against it.